Yo, 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 what's up, y'all? Welcome to another week of Taking High Ground Fridays. We are solo dolo again. Dylan had to handle some stuff, but it's all good. I don't know how long this episode will be, but I obviously had to make sure we show up for THG. So I'm glad to talk. We have a little bit of a conversation to go today. We won't do the recent pickups and possibly we'll do the verses, but we'll see how that goes. Also, we have a new tier list that we want to work on. Me and Dylan didn't get to talk about it Wednesday, but we'll start it here and then it probably will go into the membership, but we'll see how that goes. But what's up, Get Hype, aka Jake, JT, Ryan, appreciate you, bro, for the super sticker. It is highly appreciated. Nichols, a collector. What's up, JL, Matthew? How y'all doing, bro? It's great to be here. Let's get into it. Obviously, it was a crazy, some crazy auctions this week. Well, yeah, the end of week last week. Man, it was insane. Obviously, we also seen that some collectors in the hobby, in our Discord got that, so that was amazing to see as well. I think I'll pop it up here once we get a couple more people in. Give it a couple minutes, but let's see. I do want to check. I'm going to use, let me see, present this on. How everybody doing? So for the people that picked up on those crystal shards, how you feeling? There's some big ones in there. Obviously we had Skull Trooper, we had Bright Bomber, Drift, Fish Stick. It was a good amount of great cards in there. Some of my favorites. Let's see. Extra slides. All right. Shared this one right here. Window. Joey T, what's up? What's up? Yo, appreciate you, bro. My goodness. That's crazy. Appreciate it. Yo, it goes a long way. Y'all trust us. Uh let's see. So we have some I use card letter for myself. So it's just easier for me to navigate through because I can use a little bit more filters than uh other sites. But I do want to look at a couple here. I kind of filtered it for $100 and up just to make it easy to filter out some of the lower sales. But was it September 26th? We had the auction. Let's see where September 26th, we had the auction for the Brazil Crystal Shard and a PSA 10, and that one sold for $5,511. This was a amazing sale. Obviously, we talk about Brazil all the time. It was some Brazil conversations in the Facebook group and the Discord where you just see a lump sum of them. It's a lot of different things that can happen to with Panini doing buybacks and then it getting resold in different ways. But that's besides the point. I always judge Brazil based off of when it hits the grading door. It's just the easiest way to do it. We can't really tell and control exactly what goes on when it comes to how it was distributed over there. So this was an amazing sell for Brazil, strong sell for Brazil for sure. I mean, Black Knight is just always going to sell well. Also, we go to on September 27th, we have the Spider Knight, and he sold for 609. That was a great auction as well. We had a lot of auctions this week. You obviously have shout out to Richard right here. You have Moisty Merman, 637. If I'm being honest, I thought that was a pretty good deal. A PSA 10 Crystal Shard is not easy to obtain, but whoever got that for 637, I think they did pretty great. Um, I was tempted by this one, I ain't gonna lie. This one was a great sell as well. This the Visitor Crystal Shard. I'll be honest, I if I was 100,000%, I'm super confident in the storyline now. If I was 100% confident that the seven was coming back, I would have probably been aggressive with this one. But this was a great sell right here. Congrats to somebody that got that. Uh, we also have Frostbite right here, 545. We want to go through these because yeah, a lot of times the auction, we hear a lot of conversations about the hobby being down, which is technically true, and we also hear some stuff about the cars being too high. So I want to show some of these sales just so you can understand exactly what you're getting into if you're new. I remember first coming in and seeing some of these sales and was definitely discouraged, but don't be, because if you look at the sales that happened previously to this, especially to a card like Rex, there's definitely going to be opportunities as time goes on. Also, we go up to Omen at 679. Let me click that over right here. Love Ranger 610. Which one is Sanctum 559, and then we have a major sale of a Black Knight Crystal Shard. Uh, this one sold for 7,200. I think we can all agree. Whoever got that card, that is a pretty major sale. Well, I'm not gonna lie, I know who got the card, but they haven't said who that they got it yet, so I'll let them do that. But this is a great sale, honestly, a great sale. I'm happy for the collector because uh, I don't know how many days we would have thought we would have seen a $7,200 PSA 9 Black Knight sale. So that was a great one. I don't think this is a this is a legit sale. This is a Ghoul Trooper, so I'm gonna just skip past that one. Uh, 480 for the Red Knight. Now, y'all, when I talk about these, we have to keep in mind that these are raw, so all the conditions were different. So if you see a major fluctuation in sale, and that's probably the case of the condition of the card, and other times it could just be that the card sold low or high, whatever the case may be. Uh, but what I really liked about these were that, when you see raw crystal shower sales, it's always interesting. Yeah, I know how I feel. I really like to see auction sales. I love best offers and stuff like that. But the auctions really give you a understanding of where the hobby is at the moment. 405 for Omega, which I think is a great price. 787 for Ghoul Trooper. 1,194 for Fish Stick. And Dynamo, what I liked about this Dynamo sale is that I think a lot of people understood what Dynamo has done, well, means to the game now more than they did, let's say, 2 years ago. But we haven't got to see too many public sales or public auctions. So for this one to kind of really hit the board at 685 was a great sale. And also we have Dark Bomber, Bright Bomber right here. Dark Bomber 685, Bright Bomber 1325. And then we have Drift at 1,075. Skull Trooper took the crown for this auction with 2,500, 2,550 to be exact. And I'm gonna just say that is that's pretty close, pretty on par to what Pilly's last raw card sold for. So shout out to Skull Trooper for getting his just due. I think this is one of the top cards. Y'all know how I feel about Skull Trooper. So congrats to the collector right there. Nogops for 455. And then we had, I believe this card was pretty beat up, if I'm not mistaken, but we also have Sunstrider at 113. So that's some of the sales that we had over the past week. It was great to see those. Honestly, I was excited to see how some of those sold. And I think that as time goes on, it's going to be very interesting to see how the paradigm shifts with some cards. I think the Skull Trooper was a very healthy sell. Bright Bomber, we've seen a couple Bright Bombers in the Discord recently sell. Obviously, I picked up a Bright Bomber this year as well, but I think those are some cards that's really getting what they deserve. Let us know what you think. Well, it's me today, but y'all get the point. Let me know what you think about those sales. Also, another thing that I want to get into. Let me see if I want to cover anything else. uh another website that I use is I'm just using, I'm nobody's paying us, y'all. So it's just, listen, it is what it is. We gotta give the content. I just want to show some things. Uh Another website that I like to use is GemRate. And I wanted to show something on this one as well. So I can't even see my, let's see. So I think, let's see. All right. Let's see. I hate that they do this. Cracked ice. So yeah, I think this is the highest graded card in series 2, like the amount graded, and it is a total of 85. The reason why this was interesting to me is because I truly believe that this is now we know that with Skull Trooper, we know that with high grades like Skull Trooper, Pilly, Aura, even like a BK, we know that those are being cracked and resubbed pretty frequently. But when it comes to series two, I don't know how many people are cracking zero and resubbing him. One, his PSA 9 is not worth enough to do that. And then the PSA 10 is, I mean, one, the PSA 10 is not worth enough to do that. And then the PSA 9 is just risky doing it again. And you kind of just spending too much money on that. And what I wanted to bring this up for is this total is at 85. And for Skull Trooper, I believe Skull Trooper is at 78, but we know Skull Trooper has been cracked and resubbed a couple times. So I think it's going to be interesting to see the numbers that happen in 2025 because I truly believe that there is only 100 Series 1 crystal shards, and I think that they're probably 150 to 200 for uh, Series 2, and Series 3 is looking like it might be around the 500 mark. Midas is at 177, but we have to keep in mind that he has slowed down a lot. He's been in the hundreds for a while now. And if it takes him a while to hit 200, maybe that number is 400 or maybe the number is 300. Who knows? But I just wanted to kind of touch on. I know Kyrie was bringing up any shifts in the market when it came to grading. It's not major shifts, but there are cards that are hitting certain grading numbers that can become very interesting, especially with mega boxes for Series 1 being around that 900 mark. All right. And then after that, I think that's good for those. But let me make sure. And, all right. So another thing that I wanted to talk about today is I want to make sure that sorry guys, only me. I'm just trying to make sure something is cleared on here. Yeah. All right. Uh I think this is glitched. Hope not. Let's see. Uh, I hope this is not glitched. I'm trying to figure out if this is messed up real quick. All right. All right. Let's see. So this is okay. So yeah. What I wanted to get into today. Yeah. Hit a W in the chat to let me know that the that this is working because there's something weird going on my end. Let me see. There you go. Okay, so there you go. It's perfect. All right. So yeah, listen. So I've been thinking about this for a while. I have to shout out Cajun Cardboard for this idea. Now obviously we thank you, y'all. Appreciate it. So I've been thinking about this for a while. Cajun Cardboard did a Jordan hierarchy. He's a Jordan collector, but he did a Jordan hierarchy for collecting for obviously collecting Jordan cards. Obviously, there's a lot of inserts and parallels inside of for Jordan in the 90s. But I think it's very important for new collectors to understand what they're getting into. Obviously, Dylan and I, we've done top 50 lists and things like that, top 25. And those are all great for conversation and having great debates about what cards are number one and stuff like that. But I think a tier list is very important. But I have some questions about before we start going into this because I think this is going to be the major project that we do to end the year. Obviously, once we get a tier list, then we can do top 50s, we can do top 10s based off this tier list. But I just want to give some of the qualifications and maybe we can talk through it in the chat and everything like that. But so for the tier list, obviously important things is like yeah, Kari, I feel like the pop report is surprising for Zero as well, especially because he's the highest, the most graded for series two. Obviously, that's with him being the 200th card, the last card in the set. But it's still surprising, especially because he's still being graded. Uh and I think it's interesting because the top graded in series two is things like Ice King, Ice Queen, Aura, Ultimate Night, those legendary cards, and then obviously the most popular cards, some of the most popular cards in the set. But that's what I'm Kari, that's why I brought it up. I usually That's why I use gem rate personally. I can kind of search things pretty quick with gem rate and kind of get a especially because they do PSA, BGS, SGC, and CGC. They show them all combined fairly easy. So when I did that, I looked at zero and I'm like, oh shoot, he's actually at 85. And we know, like, I think that's the only one we can be confident on that people aren't grading and resubbing. It just doesn't make sense at this time. Now, maybe the first year that could have possibly happened, but we also know that was during the pandemic and the backup of PSA, and it just wasn't the same. So I think he is the one card that we can confidently say hasn't really been cracked and resubbed. Ice King and Autumn Night, I think they kind of had their moments where they possibly was. But yeah, it should be interesting. Yeah, Special K solo tonight. So what we're gonna get into is kind of talking about the possible tier list that THG is gonna do. We need the community support with this one. Uh, but demand scarcity, value, and usually we always talk about aesthetic, but that kind of is irrelevant in most of this case. So I think that one might go out the window for the tier list, but the tier list won't have any. It won't be like hard rank. So for instance, tier one. Let's just name some of the top cards in there. Like so, if it's like Black Knight, Pilly, Skull Trooper, Ghoul Trooper, they when you see the tier list, they won't be in order. It would just be be in their proper tier. And what that would allow the community to do, so if a new collector comes in, like we've seen over the past couple weeks, they know what they're getting into. So if they have a let's say a 500 or $1,000 budget, they know that they probably won't be able to immediately go into tier one and thrive, but they can thrive in tier two and tier three, and they would know what cards are in that tier for them to comfortably be in there. And I think another thing is we always use the example of PSA 10, but I think for the tier list, I don't think we should use a grading metric. I think it should just be the card on its own, because I think, for instance, if somebody comes in and their favorite character is Black Knight, right? Um, the USA Crystal Shard is probably out of the gate, but they know that it is a tier one card, so they can get a tier one card in USA, Brazil, Italy. They can get it in the hollow or they can get it in the base card. So the representation of the card would be the tier, and I think as we go through it, it's going to be very interesting because now conversations can change. So for instance, somebody like Kyrie a couple years ago, he wasn't going to go for the crystal shards, right? And then he stayed in the hobby, and he started collecting, started trading, and he obviously started working his way up to what possibly could be considered tier one. So like if we talk about like a Ghoul Trooper will be considered a tier one. And then if we use a tier two, let's go with tier two, possibly could be something like Ruby, right? But the usually what we do at THG is we'll take in-game relevance, we'll take all these things, and that will have to qualify for them to be a top card. For this, if your demand is that high, you can end up being a tier one because you have the demand. And then also scarcity could get you in there by itself, but it has to be strong scarcity. And then obviously value. So you have cards like Black Knight Pilly that sells really well consistently, and that can get you in a tier one. So I got nothing. Yo, listen, Joey, I'm telling you, man. So I really want to do this for the new collectors because I think it can be daunting coming in, man. I think it can be daunting. You just don't understand exactly what you're gonna get into. You don't know what it's gonna take. Like, so for instance, if you see a card that's once again in tier one, another thing that you understand is that if it's in tier one, that means that it probably doesn't pop up often. So if it doesn't pop up often, it means that you something that you have to work up to, but you also can find that card in a different parallel, which you still have a tier one card compared to us talking about the number one card in Fortnite, like Black Knight. A question I do have for y'all is, uh, yeah, Kari, I think it's important. So this is some questions that we have to get through to get to this point first, and I want to talk to it. I don't want THG to just do this. I do want this to be a thing we're 5 years in now. All of us have been through. We have collectors that has a lot of experience trading. We have a lot of collectors that have a lot of experience ripping, like Andrew. So I want to talk on a scale of like, for instance, we have three major sets and then we have reloaded, right? And for three major sets and reloaded, the question is, as a hobby, do we want to put every card in tiers, or do we want to cap it off at, like, let's say 100, 200, 300, or even a number like 500? Because they can often in tiers, and then we also have to figure out how many tiers there should be. So I will give the example. If you haven't seen Cajun Cardboard's Jordan hierarchy, please check it out because you might get an understanding of what I'm trying to do. I think it was great, but they have four tiers for Jordan cards, right? I think we possibly could have more or that exact amount, but I think if we have to get to a number of how many cards is going to be in a tier, because isn't gonna every card isn't gonna make the tier list, or every card could. I think it's just based off of what we agree on. Um, I think we have to establish, is the tiers based on the best parallel, or just the skin itself, Kari? Because Warfighter, what's up? I'm glad you asked this. It has to be just the skin itself, because the parallel, I think once we get to the parallel, it's gonna get top heavy, if you get what I mean. So I think if we go just based off the skin. So for instance, a great one we can use is Midas, right? Midas is an outlier in series three because one, it's the number one chase card. The cracked ice sells well at a high gem rate. It has a high gem rate for PSA 10, but also it has a second parallel that's doing well as well. And this second parallel is the laser, and that laser is a little bit more scarce. It's harder to grade, and that PSA 10 and the off centering brings a different dynamic. So we would have to judge that differently. Does that for let's use that example, does that boost Midas to a tier? Does that keep Midas in tier two, or does that put him in tier one? Because a series three card can be in tier one if it has the demand, because we want new collectors to understand what's in demand. We want them to understand what's scarce. We want them to understand what has high value. And those are what's going to make the tiers. It's not like our top 50 list where it's a hard cutoff because it's a series one or a series three. So that's something that we do have to solidify. So I'm glad Kyrie asked that. Exactly. So Matthew, so this is Matthew. I'm glad you said this as well. So for instance, Matthew said Elite Agent PSA 10 would likely sell for more than Midas PSA 10, which I do agree with. The reason why Matthew is saying this is because Elite Agent PSA 10 is a harder gem, right? But Matthew, let's peel this back for a second. What if it was just the Elite Agent card? No PSA 10, no BGS, no grading at all. If it's just the card alone. And that's what makes it interesting, because if you don't take Midas Laser to grading, does that still make Midas card a tier one? I think it could, based off of demand. But if you look at the scarcity or the rarity of the card, it may not be rare or scarce as other tier ones. So those are some outliers that we would have to consider. And like JT said, yes for cracked ice, no for laser, which I agree with. Yeah. So Renegade, another, I like this one as well. So yeah, have all the questions come through because we have to kind of talk about these things. So what's gonna happen is we'll have this conversation tonight, and hopefully on Wednesday we'll start kind of trying to figure out exactly how to do this. Nothing has been set in stone. We haven't went through a tier list or anything yet. This is just like the first inception conversation. So Joey brings up the example for the Renegade Raider PSA 9 versus the PSA 10, right? So without any grades, I do want your opinion. Where do you think that the demand for Renegade Raider is high for reloaded card alone? If you're not talking about grading or anything like that, because it's important, because now that new collector can come in and they'll be like, okay, I can go buy the raw card and attempt to grade it and get a PSA 9 and PSA 10. But it's also good for them to know that the difference between if you get a PSA 9 and a PSA 10. The PSA 10 you got a gem in your hands, no pun intended. In a PSA 9, you have a great card, but it's gonna be a little bit different. It's gonna be a big difference between a 10 and a 9. So those, but that's the decisions that we want the collectors to make coming in. And so keeping the evaluating of a card at raw helps us guide what technically is a tier one. And I think Renegade Raider is one of those ones we're gonna have a great conversation about, because I do think she has the demand as Renegade Raider. Um, but does that put her in a tier two, tier one? It's gonna be fun to see how that plays out. So Kari said, like with Midas, if we do a centered Midas PSA 10 laser, would be a top tier. But if it's the Midas in all parallels, it'd be a decent but a bit lower. Exactly. So the great thing about what Kari is saying is, if we're taking the skin on its own, right? And we know that if it's a PSA 10 Midas laser, we know what that can do, whether it's perfectly centered, slightly off center. We know the PSA 10 Midas is a great card, and it's heavily sought after. But if we just go based off of it being raw and just the parallels in general, is it enough to put Midas in? Is the demand enough in raw form for Midas to be a tier one card? And that's the conversation that's gonna have to happen with a lot of cards. Daniel Brent, what's up? What's up? Like, so another thing is, keep those questions coming through. Another thing is, like, obviously the cards won't be in any specific order, so this is going to be great for new collectors, because they don't have to worry about the way we view cards, right? This takes the bias out of it as much as possible. So when we finally put these into the tier, it's just going to be laid out, by it being in that tier. So and then, after we have the tier list solidified, we can do the top 10 cards in tier one, the top 10 cards in tier two. We can have fun that way, but we just want to solidify it first. Brent, that is all Dylan. Dylan is a website design mastermind. So if you see anything on the website design, obviously we come up with great ideas. Like, so for instance, the checklist was an idea that I had, and then that we put into fruition just recently. So a lot of the ideas me and Dylan come up with together, and sometimes he comes up with great ideas, I come up with great ideas, but Dylan is putting in that putting that sweat equity when it comes to building the website. Kari, I'm open. Let's have a conversation about it. um I would love to, like Kari is asking, uh is should it be by parallel or should it be by character? Because to Kari's question, if it goes by parallel, right? So that will put, let's just use the top card to help the example along. So Black Knights, USA, Italy, Brazil, and his USA Hollow would technically all be tier one, just based off of how they've done in the hobby. So do we want to see Black Knight in there four times? It does help. It does help across the board, and especially because, once again, to Kyrie's point, uh would the cracked ice and the laser end up in different spots? Will one be in a higher tier than the other? So what do y'all feel? Do we want to go based off a character, or do we want to go based off of the parallel? We can obviously talk about that in the Discord. We can do some polls in the Discord as well, because we know it's a lot more people active every day on the Discord. So we can do that one, throw that in there. It's interesting. I'm open to whatever that case may be. Yeah, so Kari, I actually agree. I think that I was hesitant with it at first, because I'm like, oh man, it's gonna seem pretty intricate. But I think intricate is not a bad thing. I think some people, when you come into something new, you want to go down the rabbit hole, you want to have a lot of information. So I think it really could work. Resident. And was just thinking having let's see. and was just thinking having only one parallel represented for each character. Yeah. So I think because so what Kari is pretty much getting at is that with these with doing only BK Crystal Shire PSA 10 or uh PSA 10 USA, what that allows them to do is they see the top echelon of the card. And then if they can't afford that or if they can't obtain that, at least they know it's at the top, and then they can trickle down, get the Optichrome, get the Hollow, get the Italy, get the Brazil, and they can find their way that way. So that's definitely possible. Yeah, Joey, this is super important. I think the stats, the notes, uh all of those things definitely come into play because whoa, chill, bro. What's up, Wes? You wild for that. Uh uh yeah, I would love to see what other everybody else thinks on that too, Kari. But to Joey's point, yeah, the personal stats and notes is definitely going to be important. Now, there's one more there's not one more, there's a couple more things, but I think I think what's going to be interesting is how we approach the in-game relevance. So, that's I'll touch on that after I read Matthews. But yeah, the in-game relevance is going to be a interesting one. So Matthew says, when I think of a tier list for new collectors, I think in terms of value of PSA 9 or PSA 10, an example, sell prices, and then sort high to low. Raw is tough because the conditions can vary significantly. Yeah, for sure. So Matthew, I agree with that, and I was thinking about that as well. One thing I did consider though is if you come in, right, if you come in and let's go with a random one, let's go with Nagops, right? Let's say Nagops OG skin, you've been playing with her since you started playing the game, and you just that's your grill, that's the first card that you want to start off collecting, right? So if we show them raw, and they understand the parallels, they'll still understand the parallels. But if we show them raw, and we also show them what a PSA 9 and a PSA 10 sells for, now they can find a way based off of what's available on, let's just use example, what's available on eBay. So to your point, Matthew, they would know when we do the breakdown, they would know what a PSA 9, a PSA 10 has recently sold for. It's just that the on the tier list it would show raw. So I guess that's something we have to think about. I kind of I get your point on that. That could be interesting. So maybe that's something we should really think about. Maybe maybe the tag of the card will really show the details of it. But no, Matthew, and also onto your point, I guess for a new collector coming in, they genuinely would want to know what a PSA 9 and a PSA 10 sells for. If they're a very new collector, uh maybe that's an interesting learning curve. I don't know. That's an interesting one. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Matthew, what would you do on the parallel aspect? Like, so if so to the point, what should we have trip check the what is this 2022 FNCS snapback Skull Trooper Fortnite shirt. I don't like how new this feels. Yeah, y'all know I like vintage tees. This shirt feels really new. Feels weird. I don't know. I don't like super new t-shirts. I might have to sun bleach this and do some stuff to it. I don't know. I have issues. I don't like super new t-shirts, but I had to have the Skull Trooper and just a denim jacket to go with it. Okay, so to Kyrie and Matthew point, uh Matthew feels it will be another card on the list, and I think that's what Kyrie was getting at as well. So what Kyrie and Matthew is getting at is Midas Cracked Ice and Midas Laser will be two separate cards on the list instead of for Midas Cracked Ice being a representation of all of Midas parallels. How do everybody else feel about that? Obviously, if you're watching the playback, leave a comment down below because this could really help new collectors, because if you come in right and let's say you see what a Series 3 Mega Box sell for, and then a Series 3 Blaster Box sells for. But then you see the Midas Cracked Ice PSA 10, and then you see the Midas Laser PSA 10. You're going to be completely confused. So having those possibly tiered separate could really help you understand that these cards are different. Now, that's not saying that the Midas Laser is over the Midas Cracked Ice, even though y'all know how I feel about that personally. But that's just basing off of where we're starting this conversation. Those will be two separate cards. So David says he thinks there should be a tier list for individual skins for all the variant cards of of that only of only that skin, showing the best to worst of that specific skin existing card. So David, I agree. I like this idea. What the thing is, when we have the total tier list, then we can start doing those things. You know what I mean? So for instance, you go with tier one, you go with Black Knight, which is in tier one, and then you look at all, then you can rank all of Black Knight parallels, then you can rank all of Midas parallels. But long as we have the foundation of the tier list for new collectors to look at, we can have fun and do a whole bunch of different lists and different breakdowns. Yeah, so David, just to clarify, were you saying Midas represents all parallels, or were you saying they should be all broken down within the tier list? What's up, Shane? What's up? Another thing is, so while David's answering that, so in-game relevance, y'all know how we feel about in-game relevance, but we're truly trying to do this for the new collectors. So my opinion and what I really want and things like that, it really doesn't matter. I'm trying to make this as efficient as possible so people can really use it. So obviously some things that we've always used and considered when it came to in-game relevance is like OG, lore, usage, and likes. The thing about this is I think for a new collector, we don't want to shift too much of what the market is telling telling you. Like we genuinely want this to be something that they can use based off of what the market is doing at the current time. Now, I will also say that so okay, so for instance, if you go based off of likes and stuff like that, it really shows you what cards stand out. And then obviously the same thing with usage. But I genuinely don't know how to approach this specific thing yet because I just don't want to sway it too far left or too far right of what happened. So for instance, I'll use a great example. A skin like Siren, right? Siren is a top tier high use card, right? High use skin. The card sells okay, in cracked ice and the laser, but it doesn't sell great, right? So if a new collector comes in and Siren ends up in tier two, but tier two is like, because this is supposed to be like a climbing the ladder thing for a new collector. Like, so if you have to start in tier four, um getting to tier two is a high accomplishment, right? And because Siren has high usage in the game, that doesn't technically mean that her card sells and shows that in the hobby. So having her in like a tier two would be, I think it would be detrimental. If you get what I mean, it would be detrimental to how that new collector would view what's really going on. So I haven't figured out how to use in-game relevance just yet. Um, so let me know if you have any opinions on that. Yeah, where's Black Extra to help JT and Richard? So Matthew says mine is a comprehensive list of all cards ranked by value. Might be different tier list versus what THG is going for. No, Matthew. I think so. Uh, exactly. So he also said difficulty is there aren't a lot of cells, and even the cell cards could sell for widely different values. And this is why like I think that demand, to Matthew's point talking about value, this is completely different from our top 50 list. We understand that we're collectors, But new collectors coming in, they do need to know the value. So value is extremely important. Demand is extremely important. Scarcity is very important. Those three things is really gonna make the skin fall in a certain tier. And obviously, like we always say, a card that has high demand, high scarcity, and high demand, scarcity, and value, they're definitely gonna make tier one. Now, which cards those are, we didn't get to that point yet. But then I think so. The reason why I brought up the in-game relevance, usually OG, lore, usage, and likes are broken in different categories. But I think for the tier list, I don't think that should be the case. I think that in-game relevance should, like, like, so for instance, let's use Chaos Agent, right? Chaos Agent. Okay. In-game relevance, he has lore, he's not OG, he has usage, and he also has pretty fair likes, but really the thing that gets him there is lore and usage. So maybe that gives him 2 stars, and I don't know how that's factored in yet, but I do want in-game relevance to be a part of it. I just don't know how to weigh it yet. So I really would like y'all to help me on how we should. Now I know some people don't like in-game relevance. I'm talking about people that do value it. You don't have to value in-game relevance. Number one, you can do, like Matthew said, is value and demand are the things. Scarcity, we know that most cards are kind of on the same pace. But when it comes to the great indoor, that may change. So those are the things that we really have to figure out. Damn, I'm not leaking that, but that joint is crazy. I can't wait for y'all to see that card. I cannot wait for y'all to see it. Me and Dylan put some crazy work into that one. That's a big one. Difficulty is there. Oh yeah, that was the same one. So the thing is like so okay. So on the value side, right? This is just me. This is what I've been thinking about this week. This is something I've been thinking about this to bring to the Friday Night Live the whole week. When it comes to value, we know what the top series one crystal shards and cracked ice sells for, but like Matthew said, is the sales can be spread out. Um, but we know the ones that sells consistently. We know the ones that sell for over $1,000, and let's call it a PSA 9. We know the cars that sell great in a PSA 8, and then we know the ones that shoot through the roof in a PSA 10, right? Uh the question is, when it comes to value, uh how should we judge that on that aspect? Because like let's use Ghoul Trooper. Ghoul Trooper has sold consistently. Another one is Red Knight, right? Red Knight has surprisingly sold consistently through all the ups and downs of the hobby. And in my opinion, I think she definitely will make a tier one. Once again, we haven't established how many tiers there'll be. So for the people that's in here, please let me know how many tiers you think it should be. Should we go 5 tiers? Should we go and I guess it's all based on, as well, it's all based on how many cards do we do. So Matthew and Kyrie's talking about the value aspect and things like that. And do we cap it off, or do we try to do all the cards in a major set and then the outlier cards? And like for instance, reloaded, we wouldn't go the whole set. We probably would do the top 5 cards and reloaded. Like, so like for instance, I think it's Recruit Jonesy and Reloaded, Renegade Raider, and like let's say Meowscles, right? And maybe Midas, whatever the case is. It won't be that many from Reloaded. Or how do y'all want to do this is what I'm trying to get to. So Kari is saying minimum, he's thinking 5 tiers up to possibly 8. Yeah. So I think so. Remember, his name is slipping my mind. I hate that his name is slipping my mind. But there was a collector that came in, that was a new collector, and his favorite card was in series 3, right? So his favorite card was in series 3. It was a season 1 chapter 1 season 4 skin from the battle pass. So when that new collector comes in, right? He made that, if we do all the cards, that's probably going to be what, a tier 8 card, but it's affordable. So he's happy because he can kind of figure out what's happening in tier one, tier two, and tier three, but his favorite card is in tier eight, right? And then his second favorite card could possibly be in tier four, and he had to work up to that. But he does have a starting point and an understanding of what he's getting into. Um, Another thing is max cards in tier is 100. Uh, like tier one is BK Sharp PSA 10 and sits by itself for now. Tier two could be all the other top ones. So Kari, this was interesting. I thought about this, right? Um, Clearly BK is in his own world, right? Clearly BK is in his own world, but but I think it would be beneficial for him to possibly be in the same tier as Pilly and Skull Trooper and Ghoul Trooper, just so they have an understanding, right? They'll immediately know that that's number one just based off of sales as soon as they do some simple research. Um, but so another thing, Kyrie, is that these are going to be these. So like, this is where it's going to get interesting. I'm glad you got to this because like, if I'll tell you the way I see it right now, and obviously this can change because we're trying to figure it out together. Right now, I was seeing it as so. Let's use the ones we know that's going to be in there, like you name. We'll go with the ones you name. So we got Black Knight, we got Pilly, we got Fish Stick, we got Skull Trooper, Drift. Uh, those to me are all tier ones, right? Those are all tier ones because these are consistent $1,000 cards, right? They're consistent $1,000 cards. They kind of always like if you look at the watch list and things like that when that card type those type of cards pop up, they're always similar. That is, they are in that same cloth to auction. It's just that BK is in his own stratosphere in his own, but he's the number one tier one card, right? That's the way I see it. But I do think them being in the same tiers really helping. Now the question is, uh, tier two, right? So when we get to tier two, I'm trying to give a okay. For instance, right? Links, right? Let's go with links. Links, in my eyes, I don't know where the tiers fall right now. Obviously, we haven't got there, but Lynx would not be a tier one skin, right? Even though, if you go in game, Lynx has OG, Lynx has lore, Lynx has usage, and she also has likes. So in game relevance, she knocks out all of that, right? Value, we've seen links fluctuate. This is where, to Matthew, what Matthew is bringing up, this is where it gets interesting to me though, because if you go links as a raw card, it's very different links as a PSA 10 and as a PSA 9. We know that the drop off for series 2 PSA 9 and PSA 10 is drastic, right? And then if you go raw, it's even crazier. So that's where I'm kind of that's where it gets interesting as well. So I think it would be interesting in that instance. That's just where my mind is right now. Um, so I'm gonna go up to Matthews real quick. He said you could do a spreadsheet with different columns that you could sort by values slash sell price, GGs as in usage, OG factors, series, battle pass, PSA pop, PSA gem. No, Matthew, listen, I'm the same way. I'm not mad at complicating things, and I think we'll probably get into this type of direction because we really do want to make it efficient. Um, so JT, so top tier should only be limited to a few cards. Like tier one should be 10 cards. Okay, I see where you're going, JT. Tier two could be 20 to 25 and just gradually increase. I like this direction. Um, and I really do like what JT is getting at here because there is there is a we I think in our heads right now, if we say tier one, I'm pretty sure we all can come very close to agreeing what's tier one, especially if we go with, let's go with what JT said. Let's go with 10 cards. I think we can come pretty close to what's tier one when it comes to 10 cards, right? Tier two is where it gets interesting, but I do agree with that. Let me know what y'all think about JT's point right here. So David said make a top 5 to 10, make that a tier one, then go to the next 10 to 20, make that tier two. So David is getting in the same direction of what JT said. Um, Kyrie originally said 5 to 8 tiers. Matthew is in that same range with 5 tiers. Um, I think I'm not mad at 5 tiers. I think if us as collectors, so if y'all want all the cards to be in there, it's probably gonna have to be 8 tiers. If we cut it off, right? And I don't know how we're gonna cut it off yet. This is just me. This is just me trying to figure it out. If we cut it off, we could. I think 5 tiers will look cleaner and it will be a little bit better to understand. But let me know what y'all think. Do we do all the cards in the three major sets, and then let's say the top five are reloaded? But then you have some people that really hold the loading screens to a high standard. You have a couple other, you have event cards. I don't know what people are thinking when it comes to what's beneficial for new collectors. So is it more beneficial for new collectors to see every card broken up into tiers, or is a cutoff better? And that's what we really need to figure out first. Yo, Daniel, I did sign your card, bro. I'm gonna get that out to you Monday, I promise. Don't judge me, bro. West drum, let's do top 1,500 tiers. Um okay, so Kyrie was thinking, so this is what Kyrie's thinking. Kyrie's thinking 5 to 8 total tiers. 5 to 8 tiers with a total of 100 cards max. What do y'all feel about that? I'm open, y'all. I'm just listening. I want to know what y'all feel. So what do y'all feel about that? So JT says if you do 100 max, then the new collectors who like Battlehawk might not find his skin on the. That's what I was getting at. So right now, I think I'm giving a rough number here. Is if I'm correct, it's it's 632 between series one, series two, and series three, right? It's 632. I think that's the number. Uh, so don't quote me on that. I think it's something around that. Uh, so Kari said this is tough because he think we can work through it. So JT said if this is meant for primarily new collectors, then it shouldn't have a cutoff, which I don't disagree with. So yeah, JT, what's your opinion on the parallels? That's another thing that we got to solidify. Matthew gave his opinion and obviously Kyrie gave his opinion. Anybody else? I think David did as well. Anybody else when it comes to your opinion on parallels? So should once again, if you're just getting in, what Kyrie means by that is should multiple cards be represented? So should it be like a Midas cracked ice and the Midas laser, or should Midas cracked ice represent all of his parallels? That's what we have to figure out. And so another thing is like because like okay, so scarcity gets very the scarcity rarity aspect gets very interesting. But it obviously would very much help. Let's call it tier 4 to 5, right? That's just the way things go. But we know some like I know a lot of collectors in here likes elite agents, so I'll use elite agent as example. Elite agent could be surprise a lot of people because the based off of the way she grades. Like obviously we're talking about raw cards here, but when you get your raw elite agent and you go to grade that card, it's not easy. It's not easy. So um I think we have to decipher through that as well, of how we judge the great how hard it is to gym. Like I don't know if we're still trying to figure out the PSA 9, PSA 10 aspect, but it is an importance of how hard it is to gym. I think that's the way we judge it. Uh and then we have to go from there. Because if I'm being honest, I know that there's gonna be cards. that could, I think tier 2 and tier 3 is gonna be the most interesting tiers. Tier 1, like JT brought up, we're gonna have to figure out, we'll probably have to cut it off around that 10, maybe max 15 mark. But tier 1 is tier 1. You know, we kind of know how hard tier 1 should be because we want them to understand that. I vividly remember coming in, looking at that for the Lux Crystal Shard, and I understood pretty quick, but I didn't understand where it fell. You know what I mean? Because to me, what Lux was in the game and then what Lux was in the hobby was very different. So as a new collector, I was thoroughly confused. I told y'all that before. So hopefully we can help them along with stuff like that. Like JT brought up with Battlehawk. So that would be interesting to see. So JT said he would keep as one card. There are very few cards where it makes sense to separate the parallels. 100%. And all with Kyrie and JT and Matthew with this conversation, also we can make sure that they understand that there to this point there's outliers. So for instance, when it comes to Midas, they'll know that the laser is wreaking havoc as well. It'll just be based differently, whether it's a side tab or whether it's a drop down or something along that lines. They'll understand that there's a difference in that. You know what I mean? So David said so David said tier 1 10 cards, tier 2 10 to 30, tier 3 30 to 100, tier 4 100 to 200, tier 5 200 to 600. Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting breakdown, man. And I think the interesting thing is gonna be if it's gonna be maybe like JT was saying, as you go further down, the cutoff is not as harsh. Because I do think it should be a pretty hard cutoff, whether it's 10 or another number. I think it should be a hard cutoff with tier 1, possibly tier 2. Tier 3 is probably where it'll start getting a little bit stronger when it comes to, or higher when it comes to numbers, and tier 4 would be massive. And obviously if we have to get, obviously we get tier 5, that's going to be pretty major as well. Yeah, no, Kyrie, 100%, because this is a little bit different than a top 50 list and stuff like that. We love doing those for the conversation. But if we want this to be beneficial, I think is gonna have to be a couple minds put together. So if you are interested, obviously I remember how we did the draft. We can have a roundtable discussion when it comes to this, especially when we start putting pen to paper and really start putting these together. Uh and I think that's gonna be important. So maybe we can do 1 to 3 weeks, depending on everybody's schedule. And even sometimes, we might be able to do, I might be able to hop on during the week, especially like if y'all don't have time at night or anything like that, and we can kind of have a conversation, put it on the YouTube, and we can kind of cipher through it that way. They was stupid. So it's gonna be yeah, it's gonna be so what Kyrie was agreeing with JT with is when it comes to keeping it as the one card, yeah, there's definitely very few cards that creates that type of demand to separate. But yeah, something wrong with Daniel, bro. So so David has an interesting point. Uh so David is saying he feels like there's so many bad skins that keeping it at 100 is all that is needed. So David, I don't disagree with you here um at all. So what I will say is this. Uh this is gonna be it's I don't think that there's gonna be a so if we do the tier list, right? And let's say somebody starts looking at tier 4 and 5. Tier 4 and 5 is probably going to be just for them to understand what's in those tiers. But to your point, most of the 100 is going to probably be in that tier 1 to tier 3 range. And I think they can look at that. I know it's going to be extensive. So I don't know how this is gonna go. It's gonna be interesting. To JT's point, um, Battlehawk. So that new collector may not see Battlehawk. There, I will say, may possibly what happens is, uh, I don't know. I'm stuck on that one. I'm stuck on that one. I don't know if it should be. I get what you're saying when it comes to that, especially when it comes to Series 2 and Series 3. You can have some serious duds at the bottom, but them serious duds might be a new collector's PC card. So it's gonna be hard to judge on that one. So Kari also agrees with that. So Kari was saying the most he'll do is a tier 6 to include the include like reloaded hollows like Rocket Ride. Yeah, Rocket Ride was the reloaded hollows is what I was thinking about too, like Rocket Ride and stuff like that. Um DKV, PSA 10, honorable mentions. I like the way you said this. So it's like those outliers. No, you want me to ruffle some feathers real quick. uh does prototypes have any space in this conversation? That is up to y'all. That is not up to me. Does prototypes have any space in this conversation? So David saying a bad Pokemon card is not going into a tier list. It's just ignored, like a Weedle, for example. No one cares for it. Protos are lame. Dang, it was funny. So David, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'll let you know that right now. I'll let you know that right now. I'm not disagreeing with you. Uh, I think that is something that gonna have to figure out. I do. Let me say this. Tier 100. If it's not all, like, so if it's not all of them, I think it probably should be a little bit more than 100. So I don't know if that's 150. I don't know if that's 200. But because I think if we think about it, right, if we do 100, a lot of that is going to be Series One. Is a lot of it's going to be Series One. Uh, and for us, this is the community building for the new collectors, right? We know what's up. We know what's up when it comes to Series One, Series Two, Series Three. But for the new collectors, it's an opportunity for us to kind of shorten the curve that they're going to have to deal with. So um, yeah, yeah, Kari. That is not for me. So like Kari, maybe like Kari said, once again, maybe on a prototype side, it can be mentioned that there are prototypes. Um, and that would have to be a whole nother conversation. We don't want to fry their brains coming into the hobby too much. I think that's like when you get deep into the hobby. Uh, like for instance, like I know there's prototype Jordan cards. If you're just coming into the Jordan hobby, it's just no way you're not gonna get to that point probably till year one or year two. So that's obviously, once again, if you're watching the playback, let us know in the comment section what you feel about that. Once again, that's not for me to decide, that's for the community to decide. So if y'all want to see those in there, let us know. Um I think it's gonna be okay. So JT says, so why not just do a separate tier list for each series? Interesting. 50 for each series for a total of 150. Hmm. I'm not mad at that. So separate tier list for each series, 50 for each. Okay. What do y'all feel about that? So JT is saying once again, so JT, if anybody's just listening audibly or anything like that. So why not JT is saying, so why not just do a separate tier list for each series? 50 for each series for a total of 150. David said he likes that. Yeah, I'm definitely open to that. I want this to be as beneficial as possible, and I could see that really, really helping out a lot. 50 for each series. Hmm. So Kyrie's response to that is his only hesitation to that, JT, is that it doesn't give a good comparison to how different series stack up against each other. Right. So another thing, one thing I want to mention tying JT's and Kyrie's point together is like I said earlier, if we get the major foundation done, right? So if we get the major tier list done, then we can break it all down. We can break it all down. After that into top tens, top 50s, and things like that of that nature. Um, I do think a foundational tier list is gonna be the idea. And I know why JT brought this up because it's like it gets nuanced. It gets nuanced very quick because um series one is so heavily weighted aesthetically. Most would agree aesthetically it's the best looking set. It's the first set. It has some of the most iconic skins in the game. Obviously series 2 and series 3 holds that as well. So series the thing is we can't is no way for us to get away how heavy series 1 the weight that series 1 holds in a hobby. So to Kyrie's point, seeing how series 2 card can infiltrate into the tier 1, if that's even, we don't know yet, we haven't done it. And if we have a hard cap at 10, it might not happen. It might those most of series 2 probably would end up in tier 2 and tier 3. So but that's good for a new collector to know. So that's gonna be an interesting breakdown. uh yeah. So Matthew says he likes JT's point, but he also agrees with Kyrie's. It may be two separate exercises. Yeah, it possibly could be. It possibly could be. Um, whatever helps the most, to be honest. Yeah. So Kyrie, this is what I was originally feeling when it came to that. Just having the main tier list and then kind of having breakdowns of their breakdowns in within that tier list would always be great. Um JT says he get that, but every list that's been made so far has a combined all uh series, mostly series one cards. Would it be nice to see something different? Yeah, it would be nice to see something different. I guess because JT, to your point, I do think this tier list could be very interesting because I think like tier one is what it is. When you get to tier two and three, I think people will be surprised because if we're talking about tiers, it's different from like when we did the top 50, like you're talking about, where I don't think every tier one crystal shard can make it into tier two. I don't. I think series 2 could really do some damage in there. And I once again we don't know the hard numbers of what we're gonna do yet. But we might have to mix these up some way. Is it I I think it's gonna be interesting. JT, I hate that. I hate that almost. I hate that I agree with you. I hate that I agree with you. I hate it. But it's the truth. We have a whole bunch of time. We have a whole bunch of time. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Like so, yeah, because and then it can be and then yeah, no, to be honest, I'm always a fan of, you know, like version 2s, version 3s and stuff like that. And the tier list can grow, it can adapt, it can change. Uh I think if we could figure out the foundation between like where we are right now, because I think we're getting to a good spot. Like what JT is getting at, series one is heavy. It's heavy. It takes up a lot of the market share. But maybe when we get to tier two and tier three, the story might tell differently. You know, I've seen a couple cards. Now I will say series two, when you really look at it, it is definitely underappreciated. And I think if we do the tier list and when we do the tier list, it's gonna show that. Uh, I mean, if we do the hard cap at 10 for tier one, or if we do 15, it's definitely gonna show interesting. Tier two might have a good amount of cards in it. If I'm thinking off the top of my head, but that's if we have to figure out if we're gonna have how hard the numbers are we gonna have. Um so yeah, are we going do we want to be at 10 for tier one? Do we want to be do we where do we when it goes, let's say this, 10 to 20, where are we at? Are we closer to 10? Are we closer to 20? So are we in the middle at 15? How many do we want to be in tier one? Or do we just want to judge the cards, right? So when that time comes, do we want to just do we just want to go through the checklist and see how many cards end up in those sections? And then obviously we might have to knock some down a tier or move one up a tier. Do we just want to go that way? So what I mean by that is obviously we get all the ones we think could possibly be tier one. After judging it with the community, maybe that doesn't end up as a tier one. It may end up as a tier two, and a tier three might end up as a tier one, as a tier two or something like that. But do we want to have hard numbers, or do we want to have the cards that really fit in that category? I think that's the question I'm trying to ask. Yeah. So yeah, Kari, I think that's definitely yeah. Okay. Yeah, because yeah, I think that 100 number is definitely interesting start because once again, we've only done a top 50. We've never went to 100, with anything. So seeing 100 cards in a list tiered could really help a lot. It could really help a lot. Um and then obviously, so once we start this, right? Yeah, exactly. Like tier one has to feel like a tier one because when a new collector comes in, the way I see it is I want that collector to understand the ladder that they have to climb because that's a great thing to know what you're getting into. Like you know, it's obvious in sports. You got one on ones, you got out of fives, you got out of tens, gold prisms, you got these things. With Fortnite cards, it feels a lot more like the '90s, where you have to kind of understand exactly what the hobby has to offer. And if we're too free with tier one, it might not get the point across. It might not get the point across. And we want the point to get across for the new collectors of, okay, you may be at tier four right now. So let's just hypothetically say tier four is probably a budget of, let's say, $200. You might be in tier four right now, but if you thrive in tier four and then you start trading and you stuff like that, or your budget get bigger, this is what's in tier two. Now this is what's in tier two. Tier one is the top. We may see an auction once or twice a year. If you get into the community, you may find some people that have doubles. But if we have a true tier one, we can have that true conversation of how often you see those tier ones. Because that's the thing. Like I didn't know the next time I was gonna see Omega. I didn't know if Omega was I didn't know how rare Omega was. I didn't know how often he popped up. I didn't know any of those things. And if I come in and I know how hard it's gonna be to get Omega, whether Omega ends up a tier two or whatever he ends up, right? If he ends up a tier two, tier three, we don't know how it's gonna break up. But if I know Omega's in, let's say hypothetically, tier two or three, I know that I have a little work to do, but I know that I don't have tier one work to do. So that's where it gets interesting. Yeah, exactly, Matthew. So like I'll put this up one more time. Let me see if I can go. So uh got this right. Yeah, exactly, Kyrie. Like I feel like Omega, and obviously you talk about Cuddle Team Leader, which obviously to your point, Cuddle Team Leader just didn't pop up often over the past 3 years, unless you were deep in the hobby and you had people that you could kind of trade with. Share screen. So when I use card ladder, I go, I type in something simple like Panini Fortnite Crystal Showers, and then I go to, I go to this tab over here where you got date sold and then price. Um, Price will go into the order of the highest sales, public auctions, and obviously remember stuff like Black Knight for 34,000. Um, but as you scroll down, you even have the 2021 Red Knight 11,000 in there. Some of them did not get realized, obviously just based off of time. So it's some sales that's possibly missing from this, but for the most part, this is on point. And for older sales like this was, I remember JL talking about this in the Discord. But what I do like about Card Ladder is that their numbers is a little bit more realistic when it comes to value. So if you see this, right, this one sold for 8,500 back June 24, 2023. But Card Ladder's value is based off of algorithm, and it dropped this PSA 10 to 7,800, around the 7,800 mark. And that's pretty much on par if you go based off of the recent PSA 10 sales that we've seen with Pilly. So that's why me personally, this is just what I use. But you got the Skull Trooper PSA 10. But to Matthew's point, we also can go, you can kind of filter this a little bit better when it comes to if you go minimum date. So uh if you go back to January 2024 to max, we can go to today. And then you can even do something like just all auctions, right? You get a little bit different. You got the sealed box right here. So this is how I usually go through my numbers and stuff like that. And I kind of get a better understanding of what's going on in the hobby and what has happened, especially because it goes back to 21. Even like this right here, January 8th, 2024, auction, Dyer, and stuff like that. So that's what the things I usually look at. But yeah, having those sales and stuff like that is going to be very, very beneficial. Once again, we know we're collectors. We try not to talk about values and sales too much, but for new collectors, it is very important of understanding exactly what you can do. Yeah, Kari, it does. I think only thing I'll say is with it compared to sports cards, so like for instance, let's go with obviously somebody like Otani, right? Otani's because of how much his cards sell, the the values after immediate sale is a lot more accurate than Fortnite just because it's not as many sales. So for me, I usually go back to like a sale that was from 2 years ago and see what they value it at now, and that usually gives you a better understanding of where that. And to be honest, for the most part, the values have been on point. So even when I came to evaluating Bright Bomber, I did go to Card Ladder, and I broke down the three past sales, and then I did the average, and I got the what that price was. But then I looked at Card Ladder's value, and it was pretty much close. I think it was off by $50 when I came to what I valued it at. So I'm not gonna lie, y'all, they're not paying us, but I use Card Ladder and Gym Rate like crazy. Those are the two that I really use to kind of help on Fridays and stuff like that. Just like Gym Rate, I think what I really like about Gym Rate is like the when it comes to Gym Rate is the best part about Gym Rate, they have the universal. So for like if you go Black Knight, they have the universal cell search, and then you immediately get all of Black Knight's cards from Fortnite, right? And so if you go to the Black Knight holofoil, soon as you hit kick the Black Knight holofoil, it shows you PSA, BGS, and SGC. It shows you 241 total, 33%, 33 gems for a 13.7% overall gem rate grade. Obviously, some of those was cracked and resub, but it's just a rough number. And then it just goes down. It gives you charts right here. I'm not gonna lie, I live and die by gem rate. But then you have this down as well, which so you would have to go here, then you have to go to non-sports, you have to go to let's say 2019, and then you have to go to obviously Panini Fortnite, pretty much same to just like PSA. What did I do wrong? Oh, so right here, and then they have them, and you can break them down in different filters. Uh, but obviously the base card is at 609 total graded with 100 gems, but it gives you the percentages immediately, and this is what I really like this, and you can even export the CSV, which really helps a lot, and it also has the replay dates. If it's updated or not. Uh, it shows you view set trends, so total gem grades and grade gem rate over time. It gives you the charts if you really like charts like that, and it also shows you how it is, how the grading jumps each and every single day. So, yeah, I like gem rate a lot. Yo, Kari, I'm telling you. So, so you asked, do you think we're gonna have that new set? The second they make that new set, there will be so many new possibilities for collecting Fortnite cards. Listen, I hope so, man. I hope we have it soon. I have no idea. If you want my personal opinion, I don't think we're gonna see Fortnite. If we see Fortnite cards, I don't think we'll see them till quarter 4 of 2025. Uh, that's just the way it looks to me. It just hasn't been anything that convinces me otherwise. But everybody has different opinions. Some people feel that it's gonna come out at the beginning of the year, maybe quarter 1 or 2. I think that's what Dylan feels. I feel towards more the end of the year, or it could be longer. But it's it's plenty of ways to collect. And I think that's if you can, if you have a goal, you can withstand this pause that we're in. And sometimes you do may need to take a break. But either way, there's cars to be traded, purchased, and sold. That's just the way it goes. Yo, he said I'll take loans out. Listen, it's gonna be, speaking about the hypothetical set, if that does come out, it'll be very interesting because the Panini era would officially close. So we would officially have a closed book with new sets coming out. And me and Dylan had that funny moment some months back of what would happen when it comes to 101s and the USA Crystal Shard prints. It's gonna be interesting to see how people that have been in the hobby for a very long time operate in this newfound sets if they come out, because some people might give up cards that they adored and valued for 3 plus years, for a 101 or a out of 5 or out of 10, and others may not even touch the set. They may stick with Panini and climb up to their grill. So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens. Exactly, yeah. So I think that's gonna be a major game changer of, if, like, what really, we had this conversation before, but what happens if there's one of ones of a Midas, of a Summon Striker, like you said, like, and I like that you said Summon Striker, because that's clearly gonna be a PC card for you. But like, what happens? Like, what are people willing to give up for those cards? And so that's what's gonna be interesting, because it's going to put a different perspective on what series 1, series 2, and series 3 represents to the hobby. Because if people are going to give up, or willing to give up, let's say, one crystal shard, two crystal shard, or cracked ice, or whatever the case may be, for a series 1, I mean, for a one of one, that's going to be interesting. So it's definitely going to bring a lot of spotlight to the hobby and how it operates. Yeah, Frank's, it's so crazy because my brother was robbing me blind back then, so I vividly remember Summit Striker when he released, because at that time my bank account was just getting pinged consistently, and obviously by that time I was playing the game, and yeah, so I vividly remember him coming out. That's some OG time. If I'm not mistaken, Summit Striker was either chapter 1 season 4 or chapter 1 season 5, one of those, I can't remember for sure, but it was close to that. But obviously, I will wait a little bit, see if there's any more questions. Season six, was it season six? Oh man, I was a little bit off. Okay, yeah, season six. Okay, because that was a starter pack, right, Prankster? That was the starter pack, if I'm not mistaken, for season six. I'm almost positive. Maybe I'm wrong. I think I'm right on that. I think that was the starter pack. But if there's no more questions or opinions on this aspect, we will do the recent pickups, and we will do some verses the next week when Dylan gets back, and that'll transition over there, and then we'll obviously in the Discord, let's have more conversation about the tier list. Obviously, we got a lot to work on, y'all. We got a lot to work on. So we'll see what happens there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You asked me about the starter pack. Yeah. Yo, Prankster, I love that. That's your all-time favorite skin, bro. Like that's what that to JT's point. That's what makes it hard to have a hard cutoff. But this could be a progressive tier list. So I think we have a pretty solid ground of where we're gonna start with this. No facts, Kyrie. Facts. So Kyrie said, I remember when people were paying 180 to 200 for 3 to 4 Series 3 cracked ice PSA 10s, but now people aren't buying Series 1 USA Crystal Shard for $100 at times. 100% agree. I mean, Kyrie, you bring it back. Like, I always reference this auction because it was so pivotal in my collecting because if I'm not mistaken, I think Drift sold for close to 2K raw. I think it was like 2K raw or something like that. And it was so crazy that I think Frostbite sold for 800 raw. It was an insane auction. And to see where we are now with the prices and even the cars that I have in my collection, like it's no possible way I thought some of the cars in my collection would be in there because just of where the hobby was. Like Drift was out of the question. Out of the question, not even a thought. And obviously Omega and Lux at the time as well. But man, time and the fluctuation, the highs and lows of the hobby, it'll get some crazy cars in your collection. Shout out David. First of all, I didn't shout you out. I know we didn't do the recent pickups, but I did recently see a post. Shout out to you for getting Skull Trooper and Bright Bomber, bro. That's major. No problem. No problem, man. We gotta, that THG teamwork. We gotta hold it down. We gotta be here though because we got a lot of conversations. We're a great community. We appreciate y'all. So we're gonna try to show up anytime we can. Even if it's solo, we're gonna make sure we can. So you say. So I should post it on the Discord. I was at Collecticon and got 3 crystal shards, a few optic chromes, and a hollow for 14 in total for $20. One of those hollows was Summer Drift. Summer Drift, crazy. Yo, another thing I was thinking about is how collectible a skin is. So like if you think about, I mean, we always use like Pilly for example, but there is not too many sets that Pilly's not in, and then he has like a major one in series two. I know everybody's not a fan of Pillybone, but the fact that he has like series one, series two, series three, reloaded multiple times, and then even one thing he didn't make it in was the original ready to jump stickers. Obviously, he made it in the black frame and the gold frame, but he also has the coral. Drift is highly collectible. Wild card surprisingly is highly collectible. Drift, and so that's another one. I think I'm gonna do a video on that. The highly collectible cards, like where if you're a fan of that skin, you're gonna have a great time in the hobby because you can collect across the board. It just doesn't happen for every card like that. Like for instance, Lux is in series one and she's in reloaded, you know, and that's where it stops. But if you have a collectible card that is in every set, I think that's important, man. It's important. It just gives so much variety to how you can collect, and I think it's about five to seven skins that really has that collectability. One of them is including Bright Bomber, because you got Bright Bomber, you have Bubble Bomber, and then you have you have her variants that's in Series 3 as well. Yes, yo. Did you JT when I see yo, I'm not gonna lie, when I seen Raptor in the trailer, bro, I was like, let's go. I couldn't wait. Dylan might. I unfortunately it's gonna be close to my gym time, and I have a competition going up. So and I have people that I have to work out with. So it might be too close. But if I can, I definitely will. If I can 100%, I'll be there. I'm pretty sure Dylan will definitely go live though. But hopefully it looks that listen, that Raptor, Triggerfish, Pastel. I know West Drum was happy about Pastel being in there. I want a Triggerfish card so bad. That's one of my favorite fish stick styles. Especially because it's extremely wearable. Extremely wearable. Yo, Kari, I was gonna ask that. If that's legit, that's crazy, bro. I don't know if y'all seen that. The end event PSA 10 reloaded card sold for what, Kari, what was it? 399? It was like 399 or something. It's been up there for a while. It's been up there for a very long time, and it's sold for 399. I was surprised by that one. If that's real, that's kind of crazy. I ain't gonna lie. That's a card to do it for though. That's for sure. 450. Holy crap. Yo, if that's real, if that's real, that's gonna be crazy. Yeah, the cards and reloaded is great, man. Especially the low screens. Like Kyrie just brought up the event cards. I love the event cards. I love the season cards. The season cards is my favorite. Because obviously I know that I'm doing season 8 and season 7 battle pass, and I don't know if I got it in here anymore. No, I don't. But I have a like a stack of season 8 of those season 8 reloaded cards. So it could be like the it's treated like the checklist for my overall set for that. So I like this those cards as well. To be honest, reloaded is a great set. It's a major set. It's not really no direct direction of how it's broken down, but you have cards like Renegade Raider in there and Meowscles. I do wait. I want to show one more thing though. I want to show one more thing before. Uh, Let me see. Where is it at? Yo, so look at this. Right. What's crazy? What's crazy about this is Skull Trooper. We talked about it in the membership. But these numbers, like, so if you look at Skull Trooper right here, he's at 66,000. He jumped, but so did everybody else. Even Pilly is at 58 now. Meowscles is Meowscles is currently in the 60s now, which is a pretty major jump. Midas 54. Renegade Raider, y'all peep this. Renegade Raider is at dang, all these ads, bro. Renegade Raider is at 121.3. 121.3. Like that is insane. Her numbers is so high. She has more dislikes than most skins have likes in general. If y'all want me to highlight some since I'm here, Drift 39, Go Trooper 45. Now this is something that is very interesting. That gap has pretty much widened pretty majorly between Go Trooper and Skull Trooper. 66 for Skull Trooper, 45 for Go Trooper. And Pilly is at 58, Skull Trooper at 66, with Fish Stick at 49. Just some highlighting some of those. Red Knight at 36, which is extremely strong. I'm not gonna go through all of them, but just some that pop up that's in the sets. Galaxy 24, Wildcard 26, Focus 24. Uh, and then you have some pretty major number drop off. One of Dylan's favorites, Galaxia is at 42.6. And I hate that Fortnite GG does their breakdowns like this because it doesn't make it easy to navigate. I wish they had a different filter because they go by these percentages up here. And these percentages is great to see the overall, but it doesn't help to show how some of these like numbers are. So this is a metric that I like, even like Chaos Agent with 23.6, and then Chaos Agent also, if we want to go to uh if we just want to look at the way most users been looking lately, uh Aura has created some space between Surfwitch again. They were two away, but she has tacked on to 11.8, where Surfwitch is at 11.5. People try to tell me that it's a close gap between all superheroes, which is just not true. And Backlash is heavily in that top 9.9, 10.8, Focus at 10.6. Uh, and these are just some of the numbers. If y'all want to see some of the ones that's thriving this season, uh, just to end this off, or obviously you're always gonna have these battle pass skins that hold the top half. The fact that Aura's number one, Backlash, Yotara, Focus, Surfwitch is in there, Echo. So you have, if y'all want me to just scroll through right here, yeah, I have some cards that's really still holding their weight. And last thing I want to say is all time is about to hit 50 for there's about to be 50 skins that hit 1 million. So right here. So Chaos Agent is officially in the million club, and Clinical Crosser is about to be there, which she probably will get there by the next season. I don't know if she'll crack it for this season, but it's crazy to see that as well. So that was just highlighting some things right there. I look at that stuff way too much. Let's see. Yeah, Richard. Dylan had to handle some stuff, but he will be here next week. That would be a great pranks. I'm always rooting for Booger, man, and obviously Peter. But I need the World Cup card. Yeah, Prankster. That's one of the great ones right there. The fact that, because I mean that's the only card that has like Booga's on that card. That's a pretty major one. Nah, Richard, we didn't do it this week just because Dylan's not here. It just makes it a little bit more interesting with two people. So we pushed it to next week. But Richard, definitely watch the playback. Kari, I was just about to get at that too. Definitely watch the playback, Richard, because we're gonna need your help a lot. We're doing a tier list, especially this is specifically to help new collectors coming in understanding what they're getting into. So watch the playback, Richard, and obviously you can leave your opinions wherever you want, but we are going to eventually do a roundtable, have some collectors come on so we can kind of figure this out to help new collectors out as best as possible. So those are the things. I appreciate y'all obviously cutting it a little bit short tonight, but we will be back next week. We could talk tier list stuff, and we could talk. We'll probably do a Wednesday, not for certain. I just know how time in life goes, but hopefully we can get a Wednesday show in this week. And if we do, we'll definitely be talking some tier stuff. So appreciate y'all, and we will see you next week.